How many hours a week should you be riding your bike? Well, that's an interesting question. Let's jump inside and talk about it. Hey guys, Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. Thanks for coming inside. It was pretty cold outside. In today's video, I wanted to talk about how much riding you should be doing per week, depending on what type of cyclist that you think you are. But first of all, why does the amount of time that you're riding your bike actually matter? Well, to be honest, I think there's three things here. Consistency is an important part of reaching towards any goal. Fitness, helping keep that base fitness nice and sort of safe and healthy, and endurance. If you're doing quite a bit of riding, doesn't even have to be a high sort of effort amount, just a bit of riding, that's gonna help build that low endurance, which means that you're able to last quite a long time when you go for these longer bike rides. And the overarching theme throughout this video is gonna be talking about how to ride smarter, not just brute force and getting through it. We're gonna divide this video into 4 different types of cyclists. So have a think about yourself, about which type of cyclist that you think you are, and then you can try and study that section of this video. Now make sure you stick around until the end of this video because we start talking about some clear indicators that you're doing too much or not enough, because both are possible. These are some really important things that you should know, so make sure not to leave before you know them. The first type of cyclist I want to talk about is the cyclist that's riding for their mental health. By this, I mean somebody that just simply enjoys riding their bike and just feels happy when they're riding their bike. They're not necessarily striving to make it towards some sort of race, or they're not saying that I want to ride this particular type of distance. They just simply want to ride because it gives them a good reason to smile. I think I am one of those people. I put myself in the cycling for mental health sort of category. I think that cycling is one of the most enjoyable things that I can do. So whenever I'm in a bad mood, I find that if I go for a bike ride, I come back in a good mood. A couple of reasons for that. Finding myself out in nature, if I go on my road bike or my mountain bike, riding through the trees, smelling the fresh air, not just the city air, little things like that just make it a little bit more enjoyable and it's sort of easy to get through life, I suppose. So if you classify yourself as a mental health cyclist, the question that you're asking is, how much riding should I be doing? To be honest, I don't really have an answer for you. I think you should ride as much as you want to. If you want to ride while it's raining, you can ride while it's raining. If you don't want to ride while it's raining, you don't have to ride while it's raining. You can just do whatever you'd like to do, whenever you'd like to do it. So I think everybody's a bit of a mental health cyclist at the end of the day. A couple of things that make cycling for mental health easy and more enjoyable are simply being out in nature, and the most important one, hanging out with friends. Having a good group to ride around with makes everything so much more enjoyable. You've all got something to laugh about another day down the track. The next type of cyclist is the coffee shop rider. This is me to a T. I'm the coffee shop rider. A coffee shop rider differs from a mental health sort of cyclist because I think they might start wearing some Lycra, maybe they wear clip-in shoes if they wanted to, and maybe they have a bit of a destination. They want to make it all the way to that coffee shop over there or that coffee shop over there. I'm pretty lucky here. My coffee shop is actually in the building next door, so it's a 3-meter ride that I have to do. I still put on my Lycra and my clip-in shoes for it anyway because I'm a coffee shop rider. But coffee shop riders are just out to have fun. It's not about breaking records. It's not about smashing Strava segments. Well, I don't know, sometimes it's about beating your friend to the coffee shop maybe, because loser buys coffee, but it's more just about kind of having fun. The goals are making it all the way to the coffee shop, hopefully without a flat tire. You can also group into the coffee shop type of rider. It's just a general fitness rider, someone who just wants to enjoy riding their bike and get a little bit fitter throughout it. Again, maybe not necessarily training for an Ironman or anything crazy like that. They're just out there enjoying themselves. But I think the difference between just a mental health cyclist and a coffee shop cyclist is maybe the fact that they've got a little bit more apparel. Maybe they've got the fancy clip-in shoes or the expensive road bike or Lycra or that kind of thing. Maybe they're even shaving their legs. So how often should you be riding if you're the coffee shop or fitness rider? I'm gonna say 2 to 4 hours per week. If you're riding on Sunday morning, and as we cyclists know, our coffee shop is our church, and you're going riding to your coffee shop on a Sunday morning, maybe you might want to go for a nice little cruise up through the hills or down through the beach, and you might want to sort of earn that coffee in a sense. Not that you ever have to earn a coffee, but sometimes you feel good if you've earned that coffee. So I think 2 to 4 hours per week is plenty for the coffee shop rider or the fitness cyclist. This should probably be spread across 1 or 2 different bike rides throughout the week. But remember, this should still be enjoyable. So if you wake up in the morning and it's pouring with rain, you don't have to go for that bike ride. It should also be at a relatively low intensity. So yes, you might break a little bit of a sweat, but you don't want to be absolutely dripping with sweat by the time you get to the cafe. You just want to enjoy the ride along the way. So focus on being smooth with your efforts. You don't necessarily have to be sprinting into the finish line, and you want to keep it at a relatively low intensity most of the time. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to quickly mention that YouTube sent us a message recently saying that 94% of people watching these videos haven't subscribed yet. So I just wanted to quickly say that we have tens of thousands of dollars worth of value in these videos, and we're giving it all to you for free. So if it is something that you appreciate and you want to help our small business succeed, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button down below. Anyway, let's get back to the video. The third type of rider is someone that has a goal in sight. Now, this can be split into a couple of different categories. The first one, which is probably the more obvious one, is somebody that wants to lose a certain amount of weight. Maybe you weigh 100 kilos and you'd like to weigh 95, for example. So you know that you want to try and lose 5 kilos worth of weight. That might be a very clear and measurable goal. That's one type of goal-orientated person. But another type, and one that I see very regularly in here, is somebody that wants to train up to do a Grand Fondo. Grand Fondo is a pretty long bike ride. It might be 100, 150, maybe even 200 kilometers. That's a pretty damn long way if you haven't been doing too much training. So that's something that you might want to slowly train your way towards. So how often should this goal-orientated person be riding? Honestly, I'm gonna say maybe 4 to 6 hours per week. And it's the sort of thing that you might spread across 2 or maybe even 3 bike rides, because these might be relatively long bike rides because we're really trying to work up a bit of a sweat throughout these training rides. If you're striving towards a goal, whether it's losing weight or riding a Grand Fondo ride, it's good to be able to have both types of ride, both low intensity and high intensity. A low intensity, some people call it a zone 2 type of ride, is just riding along, you're not sort of sweating too hard, but you're going for a long time. And then you might balance that out with a couple of hard efforts. Maybe you go up a hill really hard for 5 minutes and then catch your breath after it while still pedaling along, not just standing on the side of the road. And that's gonna sort of take your heart rate all the way through the rev range. And that's gonna help you lose weight and get stronger in the meantime. Another point that I wanna mention here is also eating and drinking right. If you're doing all this training and your goal might be perhaps to lose weight, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to starve yourself. It might just mean that you need to eat smarter. Maybe there's better foods or more water or different things like this that could help also change the outcome of these goals. If you are the sort of person that's working towards one of these goals, you might also find a bit of a benefit in perhaps running or a bit of gym work. Running is good because you'll build up quite a sweat, and gym work is good because you'll get stronger. But this is a cycling channel, a cycling YouTube channel, so you already know that cycling is the best sport out there. All I'm saying is it might be good to try a little bit of the other potential activities out there. And the final type of cyclist that I've got here is the performance-orientated cyclist. Maybe you call yourself a racer. Maybe you're training towards doing a particular race later in the year, or you want to do an entire Ironman or something like that, some big endurance event. If you are working towards a big goal like that, that's the sort of thing that you might want to put quite a bit of training into. Training in the way of getting fitter and stronger on your bike, but maybe even training in the way of feeling comfortable on your bike, as in being able to maneuver away from a crash if it happens in front of you, or getting a bike fit so that you can sit nice and comfortably on your bike because you might be doing a few more hours on that bike. Little things like that might make a bit of a difference between your goal-orientated and your racer cyclist or performance cyclist. If you consider yourself a performance cyclist and you're looking towards these big goals like that, it might even be worth having a coach. And a coach might be telling you that you have to be riding 6 days a week because the rest day is equally as important as the training days. So if they tell you to rest, make sure that you rest. But you might have a lot more hours on the bike. You might be doing anywhere between 6 and 10 hours per week on a bike. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable on the bike and you're also not burning out on the bike. That's a potential problem that I've seen some of these performance people doing, is just riding every single day, 7 days a week, and not really giving their body a chance to recover. So yes, you want to do lots of riding, but you don't want to overdo it. Because remember, more isn't always better. So hopefully that explanation gives you a bit of an idea as to the 4 main types of cyclists, and hopefully you know which one you are. Now let's move across into talking about what to do with that information. Now just remember that sometimes life can get busy, life can get in the way, family things come up, birthdays, injuries, whatever the story is. So you've got to be ready to be able to combat that depending on your cycling type. One way that we can combat this, life getting in the way kind of thing, if you know that you have, for example, your niece's birthday picnic later that day, or next week, you might be able to reschedule the ride. So instead of riding on a Sunday morning, which is what you would like to do, maybe you're gonna ride on the Saturday morning, the day before. So you still get that same bike ride in, you're still doing the same amount of hours that you would normally do, but your schedule is just adjusted a little bit, but you still get that bike ride in. A couple of other ways that you could adjust this schedule is if you wake up a little bit earlier, maybe you go for a bike ride earlier in the morning. Or maybe even get an indoor trainer so you can do some riding inside as well. These indoor trainers are a really popular thing, especially here in Adelaide, South Australia in the middle of winter. I know that in other parts of the world it probably gets colder, but it still gets pretty cold and wet here and nobody wants to ride in the rain. And now let's move across to some signs that you're doing too much riding. One example could be that maybe you're feeling a little bit more fatigued. Maybe it's a little bit harder to get out of bed in the morning because you're not going to bed early enough, or maybe you're not eating right or drinking right, and you're just feeling a little bit more drained, a little bit more mentally or physically drained. That could be a clear indicator that maybe we're doing a little bit too much bike riding at the moment. Another example could be that maybe your performance is a little bit lower or your sleep is a little bit worse. By performance being lower, I mean your legs might feel a bit heavier than they normally do. When you're going up the hill, you're putting out a little bit more effort and still going the same speed. And that can be, the performance can be pretty well tied with your sleep as well. So you got to make sure you're going to bed on time too. However, on the flip side of that, here are some examples that you might not be doing enough riding to get towards your goals. The first one I'd say here is a lack of progress. Maybe you're going out and you're doing that same Strava segment and it's just not getting any faster, but you think you're working harder, but the numbers just aren't stacking up. You're just simply not going faster. That could be to do with the fact that maybe you're not doing enough bike riding yet, or maybe it's time to start considering some of that gym work we were talking about, or even going for a run here or there. It also could just be that you're feeling sluggish. Maybe you haven't spent enough time on the bike lately, so it's feeling like a bit of a task to really get the bike moving. If you were doing a lot of riding, you'd feel quite comfortable and sort of limber on the bike. Whereas if you don't do too much riding, if you don't do enough riding, I suppose, you might kind of feel a little bit stiff and it's harder to put that power out properly. Now that sums up everything that you should need to know about how much you should be riding your bike depending on what your goals are. We spoke about 4 different types of cyclists in here. Let me know in the comment section below, which one do you think you are? And as well as that, we are a small business here, so if you could hit the subscribe button down there, I can make a promise to you that we will release 2 new YouTube videos next week. So if you click subscribe down below, you'll get a notification when we release both of them. Otherwise, I'm gonna say thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video. See you guys.